Hi there, welcome back, or if it's your first time, welcome. My name is Hélène, and I am bringing you a different video today. I don't do these very often. I'm not a huge brush connoisseur, but I thought it would be helpful to go over and talk to you about the brushes, the makeup brushes and face brushes that I use the most and therefore like the most in my collection. And I'm actually going to do a two-part series. I'm going to do the first one with the brushes I like the most and use the most, and then another one that is not the brushes I dislike. It's actually the brushes that I haven't used or have not really used enough to make an opinion about. And it's going to be a way for me to get in there and really use them and see what I think about them. So let's go with the first part, which is a bunch of brushes that I know and love. And I'm looking over, and I think I have about 20 of them, and I think I'm going to go based on how I apply my makeup. So let's take a look. Okay, the first one, which is a brush I just washed. So I washed it last night. This is what it looks like. And so it will fluff up and get a little bit bigger once it's dry. It is a QUO brush, I think, and it is called the Deluxe All Over Powder Brush. And that is exactly what I use it for. I use it to put powder on to set my tinted moisturizer or foundation. So, or if it's a powder foundation, I will also use this brush to powder on because I don't tend to cake on powder foundation. So I really like it. It's got a good amount of weight to it, which for some reason I like. And I have been using this thing for 2 years. It has not lost any hair, as opposed to a QUO brush that in a past declutter video I got rid of because the hair was just starting to come off all over the place. But I definitely like this one. And it doesn't have a lot of information on it, but I think it's worth checking out, especially since it's from Shoppers Drug Mart and they often have their brushes at 40% off, so it's worth checking out. Another brush I use for face powder is one that is actually an airbrush blender, so I'm not using it for the intended purpose, although I should try it because the brush feels, this is it, the 78 from Sephora. And it's so dense, it's beautiful, I love it. And what I like it for is that I use it with the Makeup Forever High Definition Finishing Powder. And it just puts on, I just use it on my chin, around my nose, and just basically T-zone. And it just puts down the right amount of powder. It doesn't over powder, and it's just, I don't know, it's beautiful. And like I said, I should try it for the intended purpose. But for what I use it for, I'm really happy with it, and I use it on the daily. Another QUO brush that I absolutely love, and I keep it still in that little plastic it comes with, is this bronzer brush. So it is, I'm pretty sure it's a bronzer brush. Yeah, it says bronzing powder brush. I love this thing. I use it so much. I just actually started using it yesterday again. So usually the white tips, the tips are completely white, but as soon as I use bronzer, obviously it gets a little bit discoloration. And I had washed it, but like some time ago when I washed my brushes. And so I wash my brushes, if you're curious, about once a month. And this one was waiting in the wings because for a big powder brush, a bronzer brush, a blush brush, I always have 2 of them because the more fluffy brushes take longer to dry, and I don't want to delay washing my brushes just because I don't have time to let them dry. So I have doubles when it comes to my most important brushes. So highly recommend this one. I love the fact that it is lighter on the edges and denser inside. I think what it does is it gives a wash of bronzer on the face as opposed to making bronzer application too specific. So really, really like this brush, and I have had it for 2 years and still really love it. And I protect it again by after every use, putting it back into this little protector. Now, I said last time we talked about brushes, that I had decluttered my blush brush. I was pretty annoyed with it because I had washed it and the hair was going all over the place. And this little guy came on sale. It is the 53XL from Sephora, and you can see that I'm using it for blush. And it's called the Pro Full Coverage Airbrush. So natural airbrush, and I use it for blush. So I use one end or the other, so I like the fact that I can kind of have two different types of blushes, one more rose on the rosy side, one more on the natural side to use. I do wipe through my brushes after every blush use, but you know, it does get a little bit of staining between washes. It's very fluffy and really works well as a blush brush, in my opinion. Continuing on with face products, I have another little guy. Now, what I should mention about this little guy and this blush brush, what I use as blush brush, is they're very tiny, and I don't find that I can store them, or even this little guy, in the same place as I would like to store my bigger powder brushes. So I have had to find another spot, another container to store them. So it is a little bit of an inconvenience from that perspective, but I do love these brushes. So here's another brush from Sephora that I picked up just recently, and I picked up these little guys. Actually, most of the Sephora brushes that I picked up have been half off in the weekly wow, and it's been really great because these are brushes that I needed to have for the different purposes, either as a backup, as I mentioned, because I wash my brushes and they take longer to dry, or because I didn't have something that worked well enough for me in my current collection. So this Sephora brush is called the Pro Contour Kabuki. And it makes sense. It's very dense and short, at least on this side. Now, I tend to use this side a lot more, but you can see the S-curve of the contour. So when I'm using contour powders, I do reach for this brush. I like it, and I love the fact that it's relatively dense and fits really well in the hand. And when that preferred bronzer brush is drying, this is the one that I use, and I just washed it, so that's why it is a little bit denser than usual. It's going to fluff up over the next couple days. I use it for contour powder. I do use it as a secondary bronzer brush. I like it. I think it does a good job, and it feels wonderful on the face. It's very, very soft. 5 more on the powder product side, or face product side, I should say, because this one is actually for cream contour. So that's what I use it for. What is it called? The Multitasker Contour. Well, there you go. It's the Contouring Multitasker Contour 55, again from Sephora. And so anytime a pro brush comes on sale half off at Sephora, I really do take a look and see if it fits in my collection. So it's got that nice tapered edge, and I love it for the Hula Quickie Contour, or soon I will be trying it with the Smashbox stick that has the foundation stick and the contour stick on each side. And I sweep it up and down and here so that I can get the proper blend of contour. I have also used it because it has the very sharp edge. I have also used it on occasion to contour my nose. I really like this brush. It's very soft, very comfortable, and it's my go-to for cream contours. Next up, I have my absolute new favorite. It's beautiful. It is my, again, Sephora Pro Featherweight Blending. And what I use this one for, it's the 93. I use it for highlight. And I have mentioned it in a previous video that for highlighter, this is fantastic. I can even go with edgy highlighters like the Aurora palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills, and this never steers me wrong. It's beautiful. I used it today to apply my highlighter. Actually, I used all of these brushes today except for the wet ones to do my work today. So love this for highlighter. It just puts on the right amount, and it's so soft. Actually, all of the Sephora brushes are so soft. They're wonderful. Another brush I have for contour that I really like is this one. It is the Smashbox. I don't think there's anything more. Oh yeah, it says it's written on it, contour brush. And of course, this is the mini, and it came with the contour kit. So if you buy the 3-pan contour, which is a bronzer, a contour, and a highlight, you get this brush along with it. And Smashbox brushes are quite nice. I use it usually to contour around my nose. So that's what that is for. And actually I have 2 contour brushes to go around my nose and also down here. This one is a QUO, and it's a lot stumpier. I do like the handle of the Smashbox better, so that's the one I will go for most often. But the QUO is a little bit denser, has more fibers, so I will use this one if I'm doing more heavy contour. And this one is the one I used to use when my bronzer brush was my big QUO bronzer brush was wet. This is the one I used to use until I ended up with a better secondary option. Now this is the one that I will take with me traveling often with its companion that I'm going to talk about in just a second, because they're nice and small. This one is, what is it? It's a contour brush for sure. And that's usually would be around here, around the nose and whatnot. It's very, very densely packed. And I tend to use this one to put a subtle highlighter on the bridge of my nose and on the Cupid's bow. That's what I tend to use this for. Any other more cheek contour or forehead or down on the chin, I don't tend to use this brush. So it is kind of, for me, at least at the moment, it's a single purpose brush, but I could definitely, I mean, it's got the right angle, I could definitely use it on the cheekbone. I just don't. Okay, I think we've got everything for the face. I'd like to go into the brushes for the eye. I have quite a few. I am not huge on using a brush for concealer under the eye. I tend to use my fingers, but this one is a multitasker concealer brush. It's the 21 from Sephora. Okay, so here it is. And I ended up loving this brush. I do not use it for its intended purpose. I actually bought it for to apply eyeshadow. And the reason I got this one is, and you'll see it's got a little bit of skin tone color on the tip. The reason is, this is what I use to put on my powder primer on the eye. So I use some sort of an eye primer base, like a sticky base. Right now I'm using the highlighter side of the NYX brow product, but I've also used a Laura Mercier caviar stick. I've used all sorts of things. I just want to show you what I use it with. So I use it with this guy right here. And what it is, it's just a kind of a skin color, at least close to my skin color, base, powder base, that I use all over the eye. It's Beauty Amplifier powder primer from Sephora. It's regular $15. You can get it on for $7 when you get it on sale. It's always popping up here and there in the sales section. I use that because that way I just know I have a go-to, and I'm not in my palettes overusing one shadow just to set my eye primer, if that makes sense. So that's my preferred way of starting out, and this brush is my go-to for that. Next up, I have a couple of rounded crease brushes. This one is from QUO, and this one is from a Sephora kit. Now this one was, does it say which kit it's from? They have kits, Sephora has kits of 5 or 6 brushes that come in a rectangular kind of kit, and this is what this one's from. So it's 4 or 5 brushes together. Now I use both of them, and you'll see they're quite different. One is a lot fluffier. So when I'm doing less precision fluffy work where I want a wash of color on most of my lid, I used it yesterday and today, I will use this brush. When I want more precision into the crease, I will use this brush. And I really like both of them, but I like them for different reasons. When it comes to putting the brow bone highlight, I'm a little weird. I use, again, from that same kit with the beige handle. This is called the All Over Shadow brush. I have tried it as All Over Shadow, and I really don't like it for that purpose. I just don't like these kind of flat brushes. I find they tug too much at the eye. I much prefer a fluffy brush compared to one of these. So what do I use it for? It is perfect to tap on highlighter just on the brow bone. So that is what I tend to use it for. Once in a while, if this guy I just cleaned and it's not ready yet, I will use that one to powder all over my eye, but it is definitely not my preference. But as just a tap on a little eyeshadow just under the eyebrows, I love that. I don't like using a smaller brush because I have to go back and forth, and sometimes I disturb the eyebrow hairs, and I don't like that. Let's keep going for eyeshadow brushes. So I use this one again from that same kit. Actually, I'll show you both of these because they're both from the same Sephora kit. This one is the small shadow brush, and it works just fine. I use this one to pack eyeshadow right onto my lid, just like that. And it is good for mid-lid to outer lid. It doesn't work all that well toward the inner corner, which makes sense because there's a lot less lid space, at least for my eye shape. And so it works fine, but my go-to for 60–70% of the eyeshadow that I use is this little guy. And because it's an angled brush, and I cannot recommend an angled brush enough for eyeshadow. You can get really into the inner corner where even your finger can't get to, and I find that I pay a lot of attention to the inner corner for most of my looks. Actually, today I'm using the Masquerade palette, and hang on, I'll look for the shade. So I'm using the Masquerade palette today, and I am using, I think it's Cairo. Yeah, Cairo, right here. And for some reason, I thought it was going to be a lot lighter, but bam, I got orange on the inner lid today. Anyway, so that's the brush I used today. And there was a little bit more fallout from Cairo than I was expecting, but whatever, I'm trying an eyeshadow. I don't always know how it's going to do, so I've got a little bit of fallout, even though I've brushed it off a couple times. But this brush does a really good job of getting right into the inner lid, and it has saved me from a lot of frustration. So I start off with that. I do as much precision work as I can, and then I'll go in, usually with my ring finger with more of the eyeshadow, and just press in for a little bit more pop of color, but the finger can never get exactly everywhere you want. And speaking of exact, I use this QUO brush, which is called a crease blender brush, for a completely different purpose. What you'll see, do you see how the tip is very pointed? I use the absolute tip to put highlighter on the inner corner of the eye. That is my preferred use for this guy. I don't get how to use this for a crease brush unless you're trying to make a real specific color variation right in the crease in a very small way, and I just tend to have a big crease. As far as I know, I've got a big crease, and I find this completely useless for the crease, so I repurposed it and I like it. That's the one I go for. 2 more eyeshadow brushes and then we move on. This one is the brush that I use for when I'm trying to smudge shadow kind of along the lower lash line, but well, I used it today so you can kind of see the effect. And this one is called, it's called a smudge brush. So yeah, actually using a brush for the intended purpose. So yeah, so I use it just on the lower lash line. And I really like these short, dense brushes for that purpose. Works really well. And another one, now this one is supposed to be, yeah, eyebrow brush. I do not use it for that. I actually used it yesterday, which is why it's stained with really dark purple from, again, the Masquerade palette. I did a wild look yesterday. My only regret is that I didn't film a video with it on, because it is the edgiest eye look I've ever done. I took a picture of it, but I don't think it's going to show all that well. So this is a brow brush, but I do not use it for that. I actually find that this is the best brush to put right along, just to stamp shadow right along the lower lash line. It works beautifully for that purpose. Like the amount of precision, but you're also getting a fair amount of color, so you're not having to go over and over and over again. You just stamp, 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 however far down you want to go, and then you can just blend it out a little bit further in gently, and just kind of have that gradual dissipation of the color, and it's perfect. Now, this is in my cheaper brushes area. This is from Essence. This is like $3 Canadian. So I cannot recommend this brush enough. I will definitely repurchase this brush because I don't know why I would look for anything else. Next up, I have a brow brush from QUO, again from Shoppers Drug Mart. So it has the comb side, it has the brush side, and it also has a spoolie. And whenever I'm using a brow product that doesn't have a spoolie, I just default to this guy. I really like it, and also because I keep the spoolie relatively clean. I will also, if I've got clumpiness in the mascara, I will use this. I'll use the comb and I'll use the spoolie to help fix whatever I've done. Especially when a mascara starts getting a little bit older, it does tend to clump up more, and this is a lifesaver. So I really like it, and if I mess it up in some way, I will definitely repurchase. One that is not QUO or Sephora or Essence is this guy. It is actually a Tarte liner brush. So there is an angled liner on one side and then a straight precision liner on the other side. And this dual-sided brush, although it's a pain because it's hard to put upright, although I've kept the little plastic cap, and I just put the plastic cap back onto the one side, and then I can put it into my brush holder. It's fabulous, and it came, I think it was like $20, but 15 or $20. It was not that expensive, and I was shocked because you basically get the two liners, and I haven't seen very many liners for under 20 that are worthwhile and that work well. And so the fact that this Tarte liner brush has this kind of value, that's great, and it works. It's very precise with gel liner. I really like it. So any sort of pot liner, this works very well with. And last but not least, because these guys are $2 each, I have a couple of these brushes, and you'll see I'm using them for different purposes, from Essence again. So these couple of brushes I will repurchase. There is no question. Love them. I use this one as a brow wax and brow powder brush, and then I use this one for precision work for my lip liner. I have 3 other angled brushes that are supposed to be for brow and or lip, and I keep going to these guys. So that says something, because the other ones are $10-15, and here I have these couple buck brushes that are my go-to because they are so fine, so precise, and I can just get the job done easily. So there you have it. A lot of brushes to go through, but that is what I'm using. That is what I enjoy. And I thought I would also do a second part. And in the second part, you will see the brushes that I don't use, haven't used yet, or don't use enough. And if you have any comments on the brushes I currently use, or in the brushes for the next video, I would really appreciate it. I think that sharing knowledge is super important because it's so great to know what some people are doing, other people are doing, and just to get ideas for how to either repurpose or use certain brushes for certain tasks. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative. Thank you for spending the time with me today. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like the content on this channel in general, please consider subscribing. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. For now, take care.